one, hey all, welcome back to the channel. It's Monday, baby. That means it's countdown day here on the channel. And this one is a little bit different. This one was suggested to us by our buddy Robert, if I'm not mistaken. And if I am mistaken, I apologize. And this is not just the top 10 recycled Transformers names, because some of them get recycled a lot. Optimus Prime, for example. But every version of Optimus Prime, essentially, is the same sort of personality and the same sort of thing. He's the Autobot leader. He has the Matrix. He's heroic. He's a father figure, right? These are the most recycled names that were used for characters that are really completely different from their original iteration. That's going to be our topic this time around in the latest GotBot Counts Down. Hey one, hey all, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, your most humble of hosts, Dennis Moulton, aka GotBot. As always, man, please like, comment, share, of course, subscribe, and while you're at it, line them up, baby! And hit that notification bell, please. It helps me out a ton and it lets you know when content of all sorts goes up here on the channel. Check out Machinery of Man, The Everything Factor, all the groups that I'm either a mod or an admin for, as well as all of my social media links. All of that in the description down below. Also in the description down below. And if you're in a position to help the channel to grow, you can use the donate link. Check us out on Patreon or see what we offer to you through Teespring. Or, of course, you can hit the join button right here on YouTube and become a channel member. Just saying, you're throwing that out there. And this is, like I said, the top 10 recycled Transformers names for completely different characters. A few votes came in, like I said, for example, Optimus Prime. But, like, I don't know if his personality and his characterization ever really changes that much. Perhaps the biggest deviation we've had is his version that turns into a fire engine. What was that? RID, I think, car robots, if I'm not mistaken. But, like, in robot mode, you still know it's Optimus Prime, no doubt. Megatron, always leader of the Decepticons, right? So, slight variations are one thing. This is for characters that really don't bear any resemblance to their original characterization at all. It's an interesting one. It was one that had a lot of voting that went to it. And, of course, we're going to start things with our honorable mentions. And we only have 3 this time. Yeah, short honorable mentions. The first would be Wheelie. Of course, G1 Wheelie, vastly different from Movie Wheelie. They both share the same name, but that's where it ends. One, of course, is like a remote control truck. The other is a Cybertronian car. One rhymes. The other is just crass and offensive. You get it? 2 completely different characters. Also in the honorable mentions is Silverbolt. Namely, G1 Silverbolt being a plane versus the Beast Wars Silverbolt that we know is the Fusor. Or some people have even pointed out and said, well, the G1 Silverbolt, when he became the, what was he? The Eagle, that was part of the Combiner Lad. It's supposed to be the same character, but plane and like bird, pretty different, right? But that, you know, that's not the main one. The main difference was the Fusor Silverbolt and the G1 Silverbolt. And the third honorable mention is, I thought this was an interesting one, Dinobot. The name was recycled from representing an entire team to one character. That is quite different indeed. Now, some people might say, wait, but there's also Dinobot from Beast Wars, and then there was Dinobot that was in the War for Cybertron trilogy. Yes, but essentially, their characterization is very, very similar. Essentially, it's Dinobot, right? Revision somewhat, but essentially, it's still Dinobot. None of those made the list at all. You know what we're going to do, man? We're going to do what we always do, and we're going to kick things off with good old number 10 of first. Coming in at number 10, we have a name that's been used a lot of times for a lot of characters, but it goes right back to G1, and it is Arcee. We know that Arcee originally was the white and pink car that we all know and love from the '86 film that became part of Season 3. However, Arcee also appeared in Energon. Not very much, or was it Energon? Maybe it was Energon. Not very much removed, really, from her counterpart. Animated, very similar to her counterpart. But the 2 versions of her that were noted as being markedly different that the votes rolled in for was the movie version of Arcee, not the one from the Bumblebee movie, but the one that was part of like that trio of motorcycles. Pretty different version of Arcee indeed. But more importantly, the votes rolled in for Transformers Prime Arcee. This time she was blue instead of being pink and white. This time she wasn't as I'll say, jovial and caring. She was more cold and distant. This time she was a motorcycle instead of being a car. Completely different characterization, completely different look. And for that reason, Arcee takes the number 10 slot. Coming in at number 9 is Blackout. A lot of people love and recognize Blackout as the name of the helicopter that was in the, I believe, opening scenes, very memorable scenes, of the original Transformers film, when he attacks that base and does a lot of damage. And that is the version of Blackout most people know, myself included. I love that version of Blackout. But originally he was a Micromaster, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe he was also the name of an unproduced, pretty much all-black Seeker in G2. So, yeah, comes from G1, but the movie version, not a plane, not a Micromaster. 100% different, 100% unique, and I would argue the most popular iteration of the name Blackout. For that reason, he takes the number 9 slot. Coming in at number 8, we have he who is best known as Protoform X, but also known as Rampage from Beast Wars, of course. And Rampage in Beast Wars is vastly different from his G1 iteration. In G1, Rampage is one of the members of the Predacons. He turns into a big cat. In Beast Wars, he turns into a crab thing. I'm saying a crab thing? Was he a crab? And he also turns into whatever that wheel tank thing was. Anyway, you cut it. There is no similarity between the G1 version, who is somewhat of a dim-witted Predacon, and the Beast Wars version, who was so evil that he fed on fear, except for the time that he befriended Transmutate. I see the difference. I don't see the similarity, and for that reason, Rampage takes number 8. Coming in at number 7 is a character that a lot of people don't even realize he had an earlier version of. I'm talking about Knockout. Yes, when we say Knockout, I think the vast majority of us do think about the Transformers Prime iteration of the character. However, there is a G1 Micromaster version of him as well. And I think he connected with Grit, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was Grit and Knockout, Sledge and Hammer, Stone Crusher and someone. I can't remember who it was now, but they were the Decepticon construction squad, kind of like a team of 6 combiners, if you will recall them. I liked them as a kid. I have that set, but the full-sized, we'll say deluxe-sized Transformer that turns into a car and worries about his paint job is a vast different character from the little Micromaster Master lad that was part of like a 2 Micromaster combiner, we'll say, or at least vehicle combiner. And really, a fringe Decepticon. I'll take the full-size one any day of the week. Plus, he looks real sleek. Anyway you cut it, most people don't remember the original Knockout, and the Prime one is extremely different, and he took the number 7 slot. Now, number 6 takes us to a Megatron rename, but a very different Megatron because it's Beast Wars Megatron. And yes, Beast Wars Megatron is a completely different character from his original. In fact, he has even stated that, it has even been stated that he was renamed, or that he took the moniker of Megatron in homage to the original Megatron because he basically idolized him. But the Beast Wars Megatron tends to be far more cunning, far more probably evil, far more tactical, and even managed to succeed on innumerable occasions, except for the time that he was part of the War for Cybertron. That version of Beast Wars Megatron is different yet again. So while I would say the name Megatron in relation to the Decepticons tends to be very, very similar, not exactly the same of course, but pretty darn similar, when we apply it to Beast Wars, it becomes a completely different, unique, and dare I say, more threatening character. For that reason, Beast Wars Megatron has to take the number 6 slot. And here we are once again at the most coveted of locations, the halfway mark. And at the halfway mark, we have a character who is just now getting a version of himself that is yet another new version, and I'm talking about Bulkhead. Bulkhead is a character that most people know from animated or Transformers Prime. And to be fair, when the votes rolled in, it was pretty much split down the middle. That, they were either referencing his Transformers animated version or his Prime version. But in both cases, both of those iterations of Bulkhead were noted as being completely different and unique from the Energon version, which is where he got his start, which is where the name Bulkhead got its start. In fact, a lot of people said, you know what, I had to think long and hard about this. I totally forgot that Bulkhead had an earlier version. When we think of Bulkhead, we tend to think of the big, strong, lovable lug, not the guy from Energon. And some people would even now say that the legacy version looks different again, though to be fair, I think that's a pretty strong nod to both Prime and Animated. It's not a successful nod, but it is a strong nod. It's definitely not a nod back to the Energon one. We can all agree there. The name Bulkhead, extremely different Energon character from his Animated or Prime iteration. That was good enough to garner him the number 5 slot. Number 4 is one of my favorites and a major character in Universal Collision, my stop motion series, and it is Predaking. Of course, the original Predaking was a Decepticon combiner. They were still called Predacons, but they were a Decepticon combiner, and it was his combined form. He was lumbering, he was savage, he was ferocious. But then came Transformers Prime, and the singular dragon lad that was revived as a clone from the ancestral Predacons. As he became more aware, he dubbed himself not just the Predacon, but the Predaking. Completely different. He ended up developing and evolving into a character that had intelligence, that had sympathy, that was able to discern right from wrong, and became very much his own bot. It's too bad we didn't get even more development of his character, because I think there were a lot of layers there to explore. G1 Predaking, a savage combiner. Transformers Prime Predaking, an elegant dragon, and for that reason, Predaking takes the number 4 slot. Now, number 3 I love. I thought number 3 could make a run for number 1. Didn't quite make it, though. Number 3 is Scourge. Yes, indeed, man. Scourge. I love it. So we know the G1 is the huntsman, right? We know that he's the one that leads the sweeps. We know he's the one that was, at one time, Thundercracker. But then there's the RID version of Scourge, which is very interesting. You can't say the Car Robots, because in Car Robots, my understanding is that he's actually known as like a Nemesis Prime, rather than Scourge. In North America, he got renamed into Scourge, and he is a truck. He is a clone of Optimus Prime. Some say his, illegitimate son. But then there's another version of Scourge that turns into like this, I call it a dragon. I really don't know exactly what you would call it, and I want to say that might have been Cybertron, maybe? 3 times the name Scourge has been used for 3 very distinct characters. I absolutely love it. Love the name menacing, whether we're talking about the G1, the Unicron trilogy, or the RID version. Any time you hear the name Scourge, bad things are going to follow. And, to be fair, my understanding is, as of this recording, that the name Scourge will be once again reused in the upcoming Rise of the Beast film as the main villain who leads his own faction. Again, likely to have nods to the G1, maybe nods to the Dragon, maybe even nods to the truck, but promises to be a very unique and fearsome character indeed. Scourge took the number 3 slot. Number 2 is another favorite of mine, and all I'm going to say is that this name does what they do for the royalty. Of course, I'm talking about Inferno. Now, Inferno's been used a few times for a few things, but the votes that came in were undeniable. They were a reference to Beast Wars Inferno as being completely different from the Autobot, fire truck, fire engine, whatever. I don't know the difference between a fire truck and a fire engine. I'm sure a firefighter out there does. Yeah, I mean, right away, one turns into a truck, the other turns into an ant. One is a good guy, one is a bad guy. One is, I'll say, somewhat sane, being G1 Inferno, and the other is kind of a lunatic, arguably a little bit delusional. That, of course, being the Beast Wars Inferno. I prefer the Beast Wars Inferno, but I'm not gonna lie. I like both of the lads. About the only thing they have in common is the color red. When your similarity for your name is as minuscule as that, how can you not take the number 2 slot? And that only leaves us with one one above them all, and I'm surprised this one took one, but you know what, in a way it makes perfect sense, and that one is Barricade. Yes, when most people think of Barricade, they initially think of him tracking down Sam Witwicky in the film. He is a police car with to punish and enslave, and he's a full-size Decepticon, and he chases Sam and he asks him if, you know, you're ladies man, whatever the number is, I can't remember. And we see him throughout the films again. We see him later on, even in The Last Night. And then that police car version got adapted in the War for Cybertron line with both a Cybertronian mode and an Earth mode based on the Datsun trio, which honestly makes sense. But the original Barricade was actually a cruel, and some would say sadistic leader of a Decepticon Micromaster team. You may know that Micromaster member better as Runner, because he was renamed in the War for Cybertron trilogy. Why? Because they had kind of christened the full-size police car as Barricade. Well, what do you do with the original blue race car? You're easy, you rename him into Runner. I think it's cool that a movie version of a character has caught on so much that it's become the mainline accepted iteration of that character. And so much so that the original version of that character has actually been renamed into someone entirely different. Perhaps no name is more fitting to be on this list than Barricade, and he took the #1 slot. There you have it, man. We've gone from 10 down to 1 once again. Other ones that got some votes on this list include Strafe, Plain, or Two-Headed Pterodactyl, I don't know what he was. What about, somebody voted for Lifeline. Now the Paradron Medic was in G1, I don't know if she was actually named Lifeline, but they said, look, there was the G.I. Joe Lifeline, they got renamed into the Paradron Medic Lifeline. Interesting way to interpret the voting, but you know what? Cool all the same. What else did we have here? Beast Wars Prowl, Beast Wars Snarl. A lot of Beast Wars were on this list. RID Galvatron had some votes. Drift being his G1 or IDW version versus the movie version. Quite different indeed. Some even said his Robots in Disguise version was unique in and of itself. Grindor, instead of being a minicon, he's a full-size helicopter, you know, just like Blackout, really. Armada Perceptor. Yeah, he's not a microscope. He's 3 minicons that combine. Energon Omega Supreme, turning into the Arc instead of his traditional base. I don't know if I see that one necessarily as super different. Hotshot. The name Hotshot's been used for so many different characters. So many different characters. The vote that, or the couple of votes that came in, really sort of referenced, hey, remember that Age of Extinction Crosshairs repaint that they called Hotshot that looked like Trax? Yeah, that looked nothing like Hotshot from the Unicron trilogy. We don't even know if it acted like it because he wasn't in the movies. I agree, I get that one. And just to throw one more in there, let's go with, let's see, who? Ironhide. Yes, Ironhide is always rugged and tough, or, you know, if we look at the movie version and the G1 version. Think about Ironhide, though, in Unicron Trilogy. Did he really match up with some of our previous iterations? I don't think so, personally. Oh, and I like this one, Ironworks, because the original Ironworks was just a lifeless, non-sentient Micromaster base. And the new one that came out in the War for Cybertron trilogy was a full-fledged sentient robot. That's quite different indeed. Okay, that's it. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you guys coming by, giving me some of your extremely valuable time. I do know how important it is too. If you're in a position to help the channel to grow, you can use the donate link. Check us out on Patreon, see what we offer to you through Teespring, or of course hit the join button right here on YouTube and become a channel member. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, stick around, have some fun with us here on the channel. Especially don't forget that somehow, some way, each and every single day, you right there, you do make a difference. And I look forward to the next time that you and I get together to have another visit, either in the live streams on Thursday nights, at the stop motion premieres, or right here inside the videos.